Hey everyone, welcome again to yet another episode of the Industry Show. Joining us today is the President and CEO of Gala Capital Partners, Anand Gala. Thanks, Anand, for having us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're a busy guy, so thanks for taking time for us.
My pleasure.
Okay. So we'll start with your background. So tell us, where were you born? Where did you go to school?
Sure. It's a very simple story, and it's one that is probably very common for lots of immigrant families. I was born in Endicott, New York.
Okay.
And that is upstate, sort of in the middle of the state of New York. I was brought up in Poughkeepsie and Fishkill. These are all small towns that are heavily dominated by manufacturing, primarily at that time in the 70s by IBM. And we ended up there because both of my parents at the time, after they had completed graduate school in New York, had gone to work for IBM.
Oh, I didn't know your mom worked there.
Both of them, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was a wonderful upbringing. It was very stereotypical middle America look and feel, lots of woods, lots of animals, no fences between the homes. And it was a great experience. But then as a youngster, IBM relocated the family to Los Angeles, and that's how we ended up in Los Angeles.
Interesting.
And spent the remainder of my years growing up here.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but I worked at IBM, and so did my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So amazing company to work for. Yeah. So what did you go to school for?
So I grew up in a traditional Indian family, and as a traditional Indian son, thinking that I was either going to be an engineer or a doctor. Yeah. Those were my two options. Nothing else was for consideration. I chose the route of doctor.
Okay.
And so from the very beginning, every class I took was life science oriented. And when I went to USC, I also was a life science major, ended up as a biology major there, and graduated with a degree in biology.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I took the other option. I didn't want to be a doctor, so I went the engineering route, but then I dropped out.
Yeah.
So let's get to know you a bit more. Right?
Sure.
So we'll do some rapid fire questions. So growing up, what was your favorite activity?
I really enjoyed any sport activity I could find. Anything that got me outdoors, got me to run around. Yeah. One of my favorite sports growing up was tennis.
Okay.
And I don't particularly have any tremendous skill or talent, but it was one that I didn't need a lot of equipment. Right. I didn't need a lot of training. If you can afford a racket and you can get one tube of tennis balls, then you can go have fun anywhere.
Nice. So do you still play tennis?
I do. Not as often as I'd like, but my kids are taking tennis lessons, and I look forward to spending a lot of time as a family really enjoying the sport.
It's a family sport now.
I think it can be, and it's a great one.
You travel a lot.
Yeah.
What's your favorite city?
I've been around quite a bit. I've traveled through Asia, a little bit of Europe, and definitely all over the United States. And of all the cities, I actually think Los Angeles is my favorite city.
No way.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. I think it has so much to offer.
Yeah.
I think the cultural diversity is tremendous. There's not a single ethnicity that is not represented in this city. Yeah. And so within 30 minutes to an hour, you can be in any area and pick up any type of food or language. The dynamic nature of the environment that we live in. Within an hour, you can be in the desert or in the mountains or at the beach.
True.
It's just a tremendous place to live.
One of the other things I love about LA, and I'm glad you chose LA because this is one of my favorite cities, is because, in addition to that cultural diversity, there's also, how do I put it, demographic diversity in the sense of, 1 second you could be in Bel Air, and then the next second you could be shot.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a lot of adventure that comes along compared to some other cleaner cities such as San Diego. They kind of get, for me personally, get too consistent, too boring maybe even.
Yeah, I would say that some cities can become too homogenized. Yeah. Everything looks the same. Or they become too concentrated in any one particular industry. And so one of the challenges that I think the Bay Area will suffer over time I think it's a wonderful place to visit, and there's a lot going on that's exciting, but there's a tremendous concentration of tech, and there's not a lot of economic diversity or industrial diversity there. That becomes concerning over time.
Yes.
Because if there's a problem in any one sector, it can be a significant impact.
Yeah, that's a good observation. So yeah, LA has no such problems.
Right, it's quite diverse.
Yeah. So one person that you would really like to meet or have met?
You know, I've had the pleasure of meeting a number of people, but one whom I think is just a great role model, and I think I could learn a great deal from, would be Indra Nooyi.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that what she's done at PepsiCo within her own career and what she's done for the company has been remarkable. I think she will go down as one of the best CEOs in the last 100 years.
I agree.
The day she decides to leave. I mean, what a wonderful, wonderful.
She's amazing. I was listening to an interview on Freakonomics.
Yeah.
That came out with her. I think it was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Amazing background, amazing amount of work, and it takes a lot of grit.
A lot of grit, work ethic, determination, and ignoring all of the biases that others would have that may have otherwise kept her down or kept her back.
And even within the industry they operate, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing going on with health and other things, and banning a lot of their products.
Yeah. But she's navigated the waters quite well.
She has.
Yeah.
So great role model. Yeah. So what is the most interesting thing you carry around with you?
Boy, for me, it is important to always remember who you are and where you came from. And so there was a family picture that was taken at Sears. They have a portrait studio. Maybe they still do, I don't know. But when I was probably 1 or 2 years old, we as a family went to Sears and had a family picture done. And I have a small wallet-sized copy of that I've been carrying around with me for at least the last 30 plus years.
That is so awesome.
It always reminds me of who I am and where I come from.
That is so amazing. Yeah. I was watching this interview. It was a short clip of Mr. T. Had a lot of gold jewelry on him, right? But he had shoes that were all taped up. And the person who was interviewing him asked, like, you have so much jewelry on, like, what's going on with these ugly shoes?
Yeah.
And he was like, that reminds me of where I came from.
Yeah.
Right. And the jewelry, I didn't know this, but a lot of African Americans wear a lot of chains because that's reflective of, their background and the past and all the things that were done with them. It's to show that we've overcome those challenges. But this is who we were.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So it reminded me of that. It's pretty deep. What nationality would you have wanted to be?
I can't think of being any other ethnicity or nationality than what I am. I think that, for me at least, it has been a tremendous experience. And there are always going to be things that you feel you may be discriminated against, or it holds you back, or there may be challenges within the country within which you live and the nationality that you hold. But I can't think of any greater opportunity than what I've been given, and being an American, being a U.S. citizen, and being of Indian descent. These are just, I think, great advantages.
The perfect combination. The unfair advantage that you have, I guess.
I do think it is an unfair advantage.
So, you look like you're ready to run for office.
No, not at all.
If you were, what would your slogan be?
I think that in today's environment, today's political environment, there's too much division, and I think too many people worry about or focus on what they don't have.
Right.
And to me, that sounds a lot like a concept of limited potential. And I really believe in a book I read called The Blue Ocean Strategy, and that there's really unlimited potential. Yes. And so I always think to myself, how do we help one another create more? There truly is an unlimited amount of abundance. You just have to have the right mentality. Right. So if I had to have a slogan, it would be how to rise up, how to take control of one's life, how to really fulfill and reach someone's full potential. And I would focus more of my effort and energy on that. And that's not reflective of either political party.
Right.
I think that's just a philosophical approach I have, is how do we help people achieve their potential.
That's great. So you are running for office now.
I'm not.
So let's talk about who you are now, right?
Yeah.
You're in your mid 40s, and you have like 30 plus years of experience in the restaurant industry. How did that happen?
So at the time, I didn't realize what a blessing it would become, and I truly believed it was a curse. Because as a young child, seeing my mother start a business and my father be extremely supportive of that just meant that I didn't see them very often.
Right.
So then they would start taking me with them to the restaurant, which was a franchise at the time, first franchise of Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
And they would take me with them, and we would all think that maybe it's because they're trying to teach me a lesson. They're giving me some life skills. But there may have been, and I haven't asked, so I speculate, but there may have been an underlying theme there that maybe they didn't have childcare, and they thought, let me just take the kids with me. They'll see me work hard, and I can put them to work, and they can do something as well.
You see what we're doing with our kids, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. I take
Right.
my kids with me wherever I can, where it's appropriate. They should see how things are done.
Yeah.
I think it broadens their mind. And I had a very unique opportunity for that to happen. And at the age of 9, 10 years old, both my brother and I would work at the restaurant, and we would help out. And those were all things that I think are common in all family businesses,
Right.
Especially first-generation
Yes.
family businesses or immigrant businesses.
Right.
And those are qualities that I think stay with you. They give you a tremendous work ethic. You learn a great deal of respect for many other people who work for very low wages,
Right.
lower on the general spectrum.
Yeah.
And I see how hard people work, and I think of how can we help people, how can we help them rise up and achieve their full potential.
Yeah.
Right? Not everybody is cut out to become an entrepreneur or to own their own business and run their own business, but there are many that are, and I really think that those early experiences helped me become who I am and give me a taste of business and entrepreneurship that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Maybe worked against my mom's grand plan of me becoming a doctor. Had she kept me out of the restaurant and away from business in general, I might have pursued medicine.
Hey, but you've done pretty amazingly well.
No complaints.
Yeah.
No complaints at all.
So
But
we'll
she
come back
still
to
reminds me that it's not too late. Medical schools do not have an age cutoff. So
Indian parents don't give up.
they
do
never give up. It's a lesson to be learned for us as well. Never give up.
Yeah. So we'll come back to this wall, but tell us a bit more about what was your day like? You're 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Probably spending more than 12 hours a day at this quick service restaurant.
Yeah.
What kind of things were you working on?
Yeah, so in the beginning, you do the things that you're capable of doing
Right.
without any material training, and so it was helping to wash dishes or make salads, cutting lettuce
How did
or
you
things
get
like
up on that counter, right? I
Yeah, so that was a big problem. So in the beginning, it's where I didn't have to interact or interface with any customer.
Right.
Go mop the floor, clean the dining room, wipe tables, do anything like that, clean the bathrooms. But eventually, I think that my mom saw an opportunity to teach her kids about finance and accounting and what business really is and customer service. And my brother was blessed because he was tall enough to see over the counter and actually interact with the customers. I was not so blessed. I was much younger. So she took a milk crate, these boxes that all the milk would come in, and she turned it over and she told me to stand on top of it. And she said, at least that way you can see the customers in front of you and you can talk to them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you were learning about finance. You were probably collecting cash. A lot of the transactions, I'm guessing, back then were.
Yeah, everything was cash. It was fascinating to me because as a 9, 10, 11-year-old, you're doing all of this transactional business, and people are handing you money, and you feel really, I would say, empowered. It built a great deal of confidence.
Yeah.
And right, wrong, or otherwise, it reinforced my love of math because you're able to do the calculations very, very quickly. You learn a little bit of technology. All of this, I'm using probably terms that I had no concept of at the time. Right? Nobody thinks as a 10-year-old I'm learning about finance or accounting, but you are.
Yes.
You just think I'm learning about money.
Yeah.
And the same is true with technology. You're using computer systems and cash registers and all of this, but you don't think of it that way. You just think, well, I'm working the register and this is really fun.
Yeah. And then also social skills, right? I'm
Absolutely.
Sure, you know, as a person talking to you at that age and you talking back to them and getting work done, that must have been pretty interesting.
I think, again, to me, all of it was fun.
Yeah.
So whether it was 5 hours or 12 hours or 15 hours, the day just ran fast.
Nice.
And you had no idea because you were having a good time.
Yeah.
Now, there was an added incentive. I was able to get paid. And so I would get a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Nice.
And I was the only 10-year-old I knew that was getting a paycheck. It was fascinating. It was really encouraging. It was reinforcing. It, for me, it was a wonderful experience. At times, it was a grind when all of your friends are going to the beach or going to play sports or having fun, and you're going to work. But it was, this is how we spent our holidays and our vacations and our summers. And when I speak to other people who have grown up in family businesses, we all have a shared experience. So now I realize it's just not that different. Yeah.
Were there any moments that emotional or maybe even funny that you can think of or remember?
Not a particular moment comes to mind, but there were many a times where I made lots of mistakes. And I think that you learn very quickly that you have to learn from your mistake and you have to move on very quickly. Do not dwell on it. Do not be ashamed of it. So long as you didn't do anything intentionally, maliciously, and it was not catastrophic. Move on, because business is moving on.
Yes.
So until you can mentally move on, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. And it taught me that lesson early.
And then don't do it again.
Don't do it again. Learn from your mistakes. Don't do it again.
Yeah. Cool. So one of my mentors said, a successful entrepreneur needs to know 3 things, or be good at 3 things, right?
Yeah.
One is be able to sell.
Yeah.
And then be able to deliver on it. And then once you have delivered, be able to collect. Right. Guessing you learned a lot of these 3 things pretty earlier in life. But which ones were the ones that you either kind of struggled with or had, took more time than the others?
Yeah, I would say that it was probably learning how to sell. As a Indian American growing up in a traditional Indian household, it is not, at that time, it was not culturally acceptable to be an extrovert. Right. When you're told to be an engineer and a doctor and be science and math oriented, just put your head down and do your studies, and we're not here for parties and playing games and running around, right? So it's to be focused, and so that has an impact on a youngster growing up, and so you don't generally develop the extroverted skills, the social skills. Not to say I didn't have friends; I had a lot of friends, but you don't become outwardly, really gregarious. And so those were skills that I think took a long time. I don't think I fully developed those skills until my mid-20s.
Okay.
It just took time.
But that's still pretty early.
I don't know. It's just my experience. I don't know if that's good, bad, right, wrong.
Your cycle started pretty early.
Yeah, I think so.
So, at what point did you decide to sort of branch out from on your own?
Yeah, that was very interesting. So in the early 90s, we really were limited in our ability to grow within the particular brand that we were within.
And you were in LA at that point?
Yeah, we were in Los Angeles. And it was because of the limitations that we were experiencing in growth within our current business that my family encouraged me. They said, listen, you're young, you have a lot more information, knowledge, etc. than we do. Go look at what other opportunities there are. And it was with their encouragement and their blessing, and to some extent their push, that I did so, and was able to find a variety of different brands, and then of course filter through that and determine what we thought were the right opportunities at the time.
So what did you start with? Like, what was your first let's say, did you start with another franchise?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's what we knew at the time. And
Yeah.
so we went with where we thought we could mitigate risk. And that was, we understood franchising.
Right.
We understood the restaurant business. We understood how to do business in California. And so at the time, we started looking at a variety of different brands. And I ended up becoming the youngest franchisee for Applebee's. And we acquired a small franchisee with 4 locations. And then over the next 15 years, grew that to 20 locations.
Wow.
And at the same time, also became, at the age of 25, became a developer for Del Taco restaurants in Phoenix, Arizona. So I was flying around and traveling quite a bit, learning real estate development, learning restaurant development in another market, and trying to sort of hustle the best I could amongst the different opportunities.
So at that point, is it fair to say that you were primarily running Jack in the Boxes, and then you decided to kind of
so
out?
prior to that, we all of us, the whole family, was involved in the operation of the Jack in the Box franchise. My brother being probably the best operations person I've ever met, and subsequently I got involved as he moved on to something else, and learning about finance, accounting, HR, all the back office function, really understanding all of the aspects, but really all of us in one business.
So as you started understanding these different facets of the business, right? Right from not just operations, but development and finance and other pieces, which ones were you, or are you still, what do you enjoy the most?
Yeah, I would say I have a very clear orientation towards math. And so the things that I think are process-oriented, are workflow-oriented, are mathematical, like finance and accounting, real estate development, things that are very process-oriented. Those are the things that I gravitate towards. They're the things that come the easiest to me. Right. Subsequent to all of that, I think wrapping all of that together, even general leadership, I find very, very interesting, and I'm drawn to.
Nice. No wonder you're doing great. So give us a sense of your operations today. What kind of, so you have Famous Dave's, Applebee's. How many restaurants do you have? And
so at our peak was probably 2013 or 2014. We had just about 20 Applebee's and a dozen Famous Dave's barbecues. We had already sold our Jack in the Box business after 28 years. We had just sold our Del Taco business in Phoenix, Arizona after 10 plus years. And then in 2014, we exited the Applebee's business. Now, all of this was done with a strategy in mind of migrating and investing more in other businesses. Rather than trying to develop and operate all businesses ourselves, we realized that we really wanted to focus on businesses where we could build teams of people that could run great businesses and ultimately help fulfill that dream of helping people achieve their greatest potential. Right. So just last year, through a lot of strategy and focus, we ended up acquiring a franchisor business. So now we are the licensor, the franchisor, with a business called MOOYAH Burgers.
Okay.
And it's a burger, fries, and shakes concept. There are approximately 100 locations in 19 states and 8 countries. And it's an opportunity for us to help lots of people fulfill their dreams of becoming business owners.
That's huge.
And achieving their dreams the same way that franchising has helped us achieve our dreams.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So talk to us a bit more about that. So what are your plans going into the next year or 2 years? So you said you have 100 stores right now.
So that business continues to grow. So there are a pipeline of franchisees that have already signed up to continue to grow that business. And we do our best to treat them as our customer. So how can we help our franchisees become the most successful that they can be, the highest sales, the most profits possible? That's our focus as a business. Now that business has a full complement of leadership team. There's a president and COO. There's VPs in each discipline. And my focus is really as chairman to make sure that we have the right people in the right place to drive that business forward and attract the best franchisees we can. And thereafter, really to find complementary businesses that are non-competitive but are similar, and how can we scale? Right. So we're very active in the investment side of things, looking for similar businesses that are anywhere from 50 to 250 units, already established franchisors, and really are looking for opportunities and leadership strategy on how to go to the next level, how to grow even larger. We believe that over the next 5 years, we will acquire, develop, and grow approximately 5 to 10 different brands, and we think we can achieve 1,000 locations or more globally within the next few years. And so that we're on track so far.
Big plans.
Well, I think you have to dream big if you want to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're playing this strategic visionary role in terms of your own as a franchisor, providing what the team needs. Talk to us about, going back to what you said about helping people realize their potential. Are you channeling people up into becoming your franchisees? Is that
so we do the best we can, wherever possible. If we think that people have ambition and desire to be in business for themselves, what can we do to enable them?
Right.
If it just so happens that they have an interest in a franchise, we will do the best we can to advise them accordingly.
Right.
And if we think that we have a franchise within our portfolio that may satisfy that, of course we will suggest it.
Right.
But there's a qualification process that they have to go through. And we let the teams that we have within each brand take people through that process. So it's not something that we can just automatically grant or do anything.
It's merit-based.
Yeah.
Right. So as you're going through this, there was also a time not too long ago when there was a recession and things kind of slowed down, and it impacts more than anything in the food industry, right? Lower margins and so on. So as you're going through this expansion, and we are at the 10-year anniversary of a very cyclical market, what's your outlook? I mean, obviously you're thinking of this in a positive way because you're looking at expanding. But talk to us a bit more about how you see things from your perspective.
Yeah, I think that no one has a crystal ball about the economy, and we don't know where it's going to go. So having a philosophical approach that our franchisee is our customer, and we will always look to do what is in their best interest, help them grow their business as well as they can, make it as profitable as it can be, then I think we will do our best to be prepared for any downside risk and to take advantage of any upside opportunity. As I was told as a youngster, when one door closes, another opens. And so it's not a function of what did you lose or what did you miss out on, but you need to open your eyes and your ears and look around and see where is the opportunity. Even in a down cycle, there is opportunity. And some of the greatest businesses have been built because of massive contractions in the economy, and it pushes people to think differently and to look for opportunity that they otherwise didn't see.
That's amazing. So that brings me to my next question of, the wisdom you've gained. Have you used a mentor or a coach?
I've been very blessed to have a few people be mentors to me, whether they knew it or not. And I regularly work with someone who I've actually brought in to be a coach for my leadership team here. And he and I speak regularly. So I think that business is no different than sports.
Right.
You have to constantly practice.
Yes.
You have to train, and you need a coach who can understand how to get the most or the best out of you. And that's where a mentor or a coach definitely comes in handy.
How did you find them?
So I was very lucky, number one, to be born into a family where I think my parents took a tremendous interest in helping me, my brother, and many other family members and even non-family members become the best that they thought we could become. But thereafter, they were also insightful enough to say there were limitations as to what they could do to help. And they encouraged us to go and join organizations or participate in seminars and conferences where we may meet people. And through that process, I've gained a lot of relationships, some of which have become some of my just great friends, best friends. And then I was blessed to join a group called Young Presidents Organization, YPO, which has been a tremendous opportunity to have mentorship as well.
And you lead, or at least were leading, you were on the board of the what was it, the food and beverage?
Yeah, so there's a food and beverage or almost restaurant industry
Right.
vertical, and then a franchise vertical, and I've led both.
Okay.
And there's a saying in YPO, you get what you give.
Right.
So I took that to heart, and I gave tremendously. I volunteered for a lot of organization, putting together conferences and events and so forth. And in the process, you meet a lot of people.
That's amazing.
And you build relationships. And so I'm the beneficiary of all of that.
Yeah. What has been the difference between the times you have succeeded and times you have not?
It's been very simple.
When I ask that question, I also, again, reflect back on the wall and kind of question, is that even a fair question to
Absolutely,
ask?
absolutely. I think that you only need to succeed 25% of the time
Really?
to be successful.
Okay.
And if you can beat that number, then you can have extraordinary success.
Okay.
But again, using the analogy of sports,
Yeah.
you learn more from your failures
Yes.
than you do from your successes.
Right.
Those that only succeed, I think, in
Yeah.
life are failures
Right.
because they've not
achieving-
learned
yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Right? And when they do fail, those failures are catastrophic.
Yeah.
So maybe you could say that the greatest education I've received in my life has been all of the failures that I've had. Now, what's represented here behind us is only the successes.
Right.
I wish that more people had walls like this of all of their failures.
Yes.
Where I spend a lot of my time in self-study and continuing my education is really learning about the massive failures, the massive and minor failures of some of the greatest leaders in business and in life, because that is where I think you can learn a great deal.
I think there was a lot of discussion, and I think things have changed over the past 10 or 12 years, even within India, right? When entrepreneurship wasn't looked up on because of the failures that it might bring, and compare that to going back to Silicon Valley, where if you have failed as an entrepreneur, it's a mark of you have learned something, and you have experience. We want to bring you on, because you're able to learn from that.
More so than ever before, and I think the United States is probably the leader in that culture and that psychology. But I think the differences between my successes and my failures are very clear. It is where my greatest failures were when I did not either believe that I needed or did not surround myself with the right people and thought I could do more myself. So I would say I need to understand my limitations and my strengths better. The second is focus. And where I spread my focus too thin, the result was more often than not multiple failures. And where I had greater focus was when I was able to achieve much greater success. And that doesn't mean that you have to do only one thing, but you have to understand, again, back to your limitations. What are you good at? What are you not good at? How many things can you do at the same time? Some people is 1, some people is 3, some people is 10. It's different for everybody, but you just need to know what is your limit and stay within your limit.
Is that something you, in recent memory, I'm thinking, reflecting back on the recession, is that something where you kind of got a chance to reflect and think?
Absolutely. It crystallized it very, very quickly. What can you do? And where should your time and effort be spent? So that is what helped us as an organization get through the recession and thereafter thrive.
So, as we kind of came out of that recession, you sold some of your restaurants, right?
Sure.
You kind of strategically looking forward and doing what you needed to do, but then you also bought some of them back. Was there a strategic move around, a market initiative or a macroeconomic? What was going on as you were looking through
a
those?
lot of it just came down to where we thought we could have the greatest impact. And I think as many entrepreneurs achieve a level of success, both financial, emotional, psychological, whatever you want to call it, we always think about how do we pay it back. But the reality is you can never pay it back, because the people who gave it to you, who gave you the advantages, who gave you the opportunities, or simply gave you their time and helped you along the way, they just want you to do the same for somebody else. So really it's about paying it forward. And so as we went through the recession, and that caused all of us, myself included, to be far more reflective of the blessings and the successes that we've had, it caused me to think about how I could pay it forward. Now, building restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, or buying blocks of restaurants and operating everything ourselves didn't really give us the ability to pay it forward at a way
to kind of be able to scale it.
To scale.
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to, and that's where we came to the conclusion it's time to exit some of these businesses. We can generate a very good return, and now we can reinvest that into franchisors and other investment opportunities where we can back great entrepreneurs, great ideas, great brands that we think can scale much faster. And that's where being a franchisor is that much more important to us, is now we can help create those opportunities for hundreds of people in the same 5 to 10 year period of time that otherwise we may only build a dozen or 2 dozen locations.
Makes sense.
Right.
So you're very conscious and considerate of your associates, right? You don't call them your employees. You call them your fellow workers. Talk to us a bit more about that. I mean, another thing that I believe came out of the recession was you set up the Gala University. So talk to us a bit more about, what were you thinking? What is the philosophy behind it? Because I remember reading something where you said you really look up to GE and IBM and these organizations because they make a lot of investments in their people, in the human capital. So I also want to specifically to add to that question, kind of look back on what is going on with GE today. So
Well, look, I think that the companies that do invest in the development of their people typically have much better results, have much longer tenure, so lower turnover, and because of those two things tend to have much greater performance. All of those things are a reflection of building a culture, which can only happen when you have stability and tenure. And people really understand how you want things done, what is the right way to do things, and all of those things come from the human capital development. Right? So that's all self-reinforcing, but you have to see it that way. You can't simply just look at financial engineering. If you really want to make a difference, you have to build companies that endure. And the only way to do that is with great culture, and that's driven by great people. So we created an internal university where we teach leadership, because that's something that just doesn't get taught often enough. And I learned it from watching GE and IBM and Procter and Gamble and so many of the great bellwether, foundational companies in the U.S. economy. And they've done a great job building on their people and their leadership development programs. So I think when I look at companies like GE and others, IBM has not had stellar performance in recent times, GE has not had stellar performance in recent times. I think that some of it is attributable to how are they developing their leadership? How are they developing the leaders of tomorrow? How are they investing in their people, whether they're the recent recruits or the long-time managers, midline and top-line managers. And it just comes down to what are they thinking? And if they don't think that people are doing things the right way, then what could they be doing differently to teach their next wave of leadership? Right.
Yeah, I think, and it's given your industry, I think the general attrition rate is higher than some other industries.
Oh, very much. The restaurant industry typically has between 100 and 200% turnover per year. But you have to remember that this is where most people get their first job.
True.
Right. So we're teaching work ethic. We're teaching discipline. We're teaching hard work, and how to build relationships, how to learn. Some of those things just aren't taught in school today.
So it's helping you help them, right? So you're not just bringing them in for their first job, but you're able to keep them for 3, 5, 7, 10 years.
We hope so. We hope so. And we think that over time, nobody should stay in the same position. People should be rotating through. They should be moving up. We have a number of people that work for our company that have been with us for 10 plus years. And they started as an entry level, clerk or cook or cashier, and several of them are vice presidents today.
Wow.
So
amazing.
we're very, very happy with that. You can see how people have progressed. And for others, this is a stepping stone for them. They come in, they learn a great deal, they develop some skills and some work ethic.
And then you learn about them.
And we learn about them. Yeah. And then they move on. So I don't see the turnover as unusual. I don't see it as a negative aspect of the economy or of the industry that we're within. I think it's just part of who we are as a business. We are one of the first jobs that people have. Right. And what they learn from us, they take to the next level.
Yep, makes sense. So you consistently work 12 plus hour days, right? And you're a very involved husband,
I try to be. I try to be.
And a wonderful father to your kids, one of who is a teenager, and by association I would think the other one is too. How do you do this? What's your secret?
My secret is always marry a spouse much smarter than you.
Okay.
And much more understanding. It starts with that. Truly, I think that the secret to success for many, many people is who they choose as their life partner. And are those people understanding? Are they supportive? Are they willing to go through the hard work that needs to happen when times are tough or there are unusual circumstances? So who you marry is very, very critical. Who you associate with, the friends that you spend the most time with. As my parents told me, you become the average of the people you spend the most time with. And so always look for people who make you better, right? Learn from them and try to give to them the best that you can give, so that you're doing your best to make them better as well. And I think that those are the things I try to teach my kids. And I think that that's what allows me and my family to spend the time we spend on the things that we do. But when we have the time to spend as a family, it's very important and very critical to us. And that we not have distractions, and that we do those things. But we all make sacrifices in life, and mine is that I travel quite a bit, and I do that for my children, and I do that for my family. That I'm here to work hard and create something that hopefully give them the benefits of that.
Yeah, and you're extremely humble as you do that.
Time will tell. Time will tell how good I am at it.
But again, thanks for taking the time. Because again,
my pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
No, same here. So tell us a bit more about, so you're extremely focused within the industry, but it seems like you're also diversifying in many different ways. So what's the strategy and thought process behind it? Yeah.
I believe in both. I believe in focus and diversification, but not in their absolute definitions. And so when I think of diversification, I think about diversifying within a few things that I can have a deep focus within.
Makes sense.
So within franchise, I have a deep level of knowledge and focus, and that can be food franchise or non-food franchise. Right. So I understand that. And so we can look at non-food franchises, and we can invest in those things, and I can contribute a great deal and be very strategic. I can do the same in the restaurant business, whether that restaurant business is franchised or is not franchised. Right. But I understand the restaurant business. I understand real estate intimately. And there's a correlation between real estate and restaurant as well. So I try to be diversified within a number of things that I can have a very, very deep focus within. Beyond that, I don't get involved in things like biotech and things that I just don't understand.
Even though you got your undergrad in that.
Even though I got my undergraduate in that.
That's great. So what drives you? What motivates you to get up and get another wall of awards, or help people? Or are you looking up to someone, to your parents? Like, are you trying to please someone? What drives you?
I think that you have to do what fulfills you. And too many prior generations would do what they thought was their duty or their responsibility or what was expected of them. Right. And I think it's important that you fulfill your personal passions. Now, that being said, what drives me is not awards or money or any of those things. It really is, how can I make a difference? So my personal purpose and passion is, how can I touch the lives and improve the lives of as many people as possible? Now, the success, financial success, gives me the ability to then have a bigger impact. the involvement and investment and growth of a business within franchising allows me the vehicle to have an impact in as many people as possible and to lift up their lives, right? So my passion is just to have a positive impact on as many people as possible.
That's amazing. So, talking about that, you also have a Gala Foundation that I think you started back in 2000?
No, my father started the foundation, and in the beginning, I did not understand what the purpose of it was until he was able to explain it to me. So the foundation is focused around educational efforts and support, and every year we sponsor a dozen or so scholarships for children from Gujarat that come from means, where they don't have the ability to pay for university, but they're very bright and they've achieved acceptance to university in the United States. They have their visas, they have everything else, and the only thing preventing them from coming is the tuition. So we pay a portion of their tuition. We give grants.
Nice.
In addition to that, we contribute to other organizations and efforts that are focused around education and lifting people up. And so we're supporters of organizations such as Pratham and AIF, again, trying to help people from our community. And then locally, we contribute and support a number of organizations within our local communities here as well.
That's great. So, we hustle, we generate, we impact, and then at some point in a lot of ways we're kind of, you said you're not giving back, you're paying it forward.
Yeah.
Right? So is that how you see the whole process of philanthropy? And
look, I think that philanthropy should be looked at as a business. And so when I think of Pratham or I think of AIF, providing a child an education is the greatest way to lift them up from their current situation. Absolutely. Bringing somebody to the United States so that they can get an education at a university here and they become something gives them tremendous earning power. You've changed their life, you've changed the next 3-4 generations where they otherwise couldn't. AIF, they're teaching people trades and skills, how to be an electrician or how to be a mechanic. Again, now you're teaching them, you're lifting them up from what was otherwise abject poverty. Right? So I am a firm believer in making a difference in the lives of millions of people and future generations. And I think that you can do so with very limited resources, but with the right focus.
Right. Oh, that's great. So coming back to entrepreneurs, right? Any philosophical or practical advice for someone who's either looking to become an entrepreneur or follow your footsteps, right? More specifically within the industry?
Well, I think first and foremost, people should really be thoughtful about what is their passion. What do they want to do? And if the first thought is, I want to make a lot of money, then don't be an entrepreneur. Because most entrepreneurs do not make a lot of money, especially in the beginning. It's a very slow process. Think first about what is the problem that you want to solve and why are you passionate about solving that problem. Think about how you can deliver value first before you think about how you're going to monetize it. How can you exceed the expectations of the customer? How can you deliver upon service? Because service is something that is in limited supply. People do not deliver sufficient amounts of good service in today's society. And those are the things that I think create competitive advantages and can help define a business or a product going forward. If you're just going to knock something off and say, well, they made a red widget and I'll make a blue one and it'll be great, I'm just going to copy them. That's not an entrepreneur.
That's
people
more
have
of
to.
a businessman, maybe.
It's I mean, those are short-term opportunities, and it's not to say that they're bad, but that's not what really is an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur who is somebody that sees a problem that maybe others don't see, but they're thinking about how they're going to change the world. How are they going to solve something or produce something, provide something that has a potentially large impact.
Thank you. On that great note, this was amazing. This has been very educational, very entertaining, and once again, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Anand.